The Aga Khan, who became the spiritual leader of the world's millions of Ismaili Muslims at age 20 as a Harvard undergraduate, and poured a material empire built on billions of dollars in tithes into building homes, hospitals, and schools in developing countries, died Tuesday. He was 88. His Aga Khan Development Network and the Ismaili religious community announced that His Highness Prince Karim al-Husseini, the Aga Khan IV and 49th hereditary Imam of the Shiite Ismaili Muslims, died in Portugal surrounded by his family. On Wednesday, his son Rahim was named the Aga Khan IV, the 50th hereditary Imam of the Shiite Ismaili Muslims, in accordance with his father's will. The Ismaili community's website said the late Aga Khan's burial will be held in the coming days, followed by an homage ceremony. Considered by his followers to be a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad and treated as a head of state, he was a student when his grandfather named him as successor to lead the diaspora of Ismaili Muslims, passing over his playboy father and saying his followers should be led by a young man who has been brought up in the midst of the new age. Ceremonies were held in Ismaili communities in the U.S. and elsewhere in the world on Tuesday and Wednesday. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called him a symbol of peace, tolerance, and compassion in our troubled world. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called him a very good friend and an extraordinarily compassionate global leader. Condolences poured in online from charity groups he supported, as well as the equestrian world, where he was a well-known figure. The Aga Khan was given the title of His Highness by Queen Elizabeth in July 1957. 2 weeks after his grandfather, the Aga Khan III, unexpectedly made him heir to the family's 1,300-year dynasty as leader of the Ismaili Muslim sect. He became the Aga Khan IV on July 11, 1957, in Geneva, Switzerland, and later that year had an installation ceremony in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, on the spot where his grandfather once had his weight equaled in diamonds and gifts from his followers. He had left Harvard to be at his ailing grandfather's side, and returned to school 18 months later with an entourage and a deep sense of responsibility. I was an undergraduate who knew what his work for the rest of his life was going to be, he said in a 2012 interview with Vanity Fair magazine. I don't think anyone in my situation would have been prepared. A defender of Islamic culture and values, he was widely regarded as a builder of bridges between Muslim societies and the West despite, or perhaps because of, his reticence to become involved in politics. The Aga Khan Development Network, his main philanthropic organization, deals mainly with issues of healthcare, housing, education, and rural economic development. It says it works in over 30 countries and has an annual budget of about $1 billion for nonprofit development activities. A network of hospitals bearing his name are scattered in places where healthcare had lacked for the poorest, including Bangladesh, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan, where he spent tens of millions of dollars for development of local economies. The extent of the Aga Khan's financial empire is hard to measure. Some reports estimated his personal wealth to be in the billions. Ismailis lived for many generations in Iran, Syria, and South Asia, before also settling in East Africa, Central Asia, and the Middle East, as well as Europe, North America, and Australia more recently. They consider it a duty to tithe up to 12.5% of their income to the Aga Khan as steward. We have no notion of the accumulation of wealth being evil, he told Vanity Fair in 2012. The Islamic ethic is that if God has given you the capacity or good fortune to be a privileged individual in society, you have a moral responsibility to society. The Ismaili community's website said he was born on December 13, 1936, in Kurtagenthid, near Geneva, the son of Joan Yardbuller and Ali Khan, and spent part of his childhood in Nairobi, Kenya, where a hospital now bears his name. He became well known as a horse breeder and owner, and he represented Iran in the 1964 Winter Olympics as a skier. His eye for building and design led him to establish an architecture prize and programs for Islamic architecture at MIT and Harvard. He restored ancient Islamic structures throughout the world. The Aga Khan lived at length in France and had been based in Portugal for the past several years. His development network and foundation are based in Switzerland. He is survived by 3 sons and a daughter and several grandchildren. Mourners, including Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, gathered at the Ismaili Centre in Lisbon, Portugal, to commemorate Aga Khan IV, the spiritual leader of the world's Ismaili Muslims, who died in the Portuguese capital at the age of 88 on Wednesday. Following the funeral service, the late leader of the multi-ethnic community scattered across several countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America is to be buried at a private ceremony in Aswan, Egypt tomorrow. His son, Prince Rahim Al-Hassani Aga Khan IV, is to be formally unveiled as his successor, the hereditary Imam of the Ismaili Muslims, in a ceremony on Tuesday. The funeral of Aga Khan IV, the 49th hereditary Imam of the Shiite Ismaili Muslims, took place in Lisbon on Saturday. The Associated Press reported that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Spain's King Emeritus Juan Carlos were among the dignitaries who attended the private ceremony for His Highness Prince Karim Al-Hassani at the Ismaili Community Centre. Among others, Portugal's President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa and the Mayor of Lisbon were also present. As per the details, Prince Karim will be laid to rest during a private burial ceremony in Aswan, Egypt on Sunday. His death was announced on Tuesday by the Aga Khan Development Network, AKDN, and the Ismaili religious community. The following day, 53-year-old Rahim Al-Hassani was named as the Aga Khan IV, the spiritual leader of the world's millions of Ismaili Muslims, in accordance with his father's will. The Aga Khan is considered by his followers to be a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad and is treated as a head of state. The Aga Khan's charities ran several hospitals, educational and cultural projects in the developing world. His name is also synonymous with success as a racehorse owner with thoroughbred Shergar, which is known to be among the most famous breeds in the world, news agency Reuters reported. He went on to become a leading owner and breeder of racehorses in France, Ireland, and the UK, breeding Shergar. According to Forbes magazine, the prince had an estimated fortune of $1 billion, £801 million, in 2008 with his business interests, including horse breeding boosting his inherited wealth. Khan was born in Switzerland and had a British citizenship. He resided in a chateau in France and enjoyed a lavish lifestyle. He also owned a private island in Bahamas, a $200 million superyacht, and private jets, the report said. Prince Karim Aga Khan succeeded his grandfather as Imam of the Ismaili Muslims in 1957 at the age of 20.